Have you, okay, so getting back on topic here, have you learned about or looked into Frost multisig at all?
I have
MS?
not. I have not.
No?
I'd be interested in learning about it. I just do the regular multi-sig myself, and am actually getting ready to set my kids up with it and my brother because they're all still on single sig with passphrases.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and so
Yep.
I don't know. Is Frost a easier way to go?
So there, well, it's not ready yet.
Yep.
They're working on it at the moment, and it's basically it's kind of morning, Drew. How's it going? Um,
Very good.
cool. So yeah, so it's basically like multi-sig on steroids for Taproot is what it is. Taproot enabled it, and yeah, it's multi-sig on steroids. Really, it basically it allows you to have kind of the same qualities of like having these thresholds, but everything is rolled up into just a single signature, and so on chain it looks no different than a single sig taproot transaction. And because of that, it's more private, right? Like you're not, the network doesn't know when you're signing with a multi-sig, which they do now, right? If you're using a legacy or a script multi-sig, every time you sign a transaction, the network knows that you're signing with a 2 of 3 or a 3 of 5 or whatever,
Yeah.
right? And then another benefit is uh, you're paying less in fees,
Yeah.
right? Which is
Yeah. That's
something that a lot of people are starting to think about.
yep.
Um, and then another really cool benefit. I mean, there's just so many benefits to this, to be honest, and I can't wait for it to come out for to start playing around with it. But another really cool benefit is if you lose one of your keys. Let's say you have a 2 of 3. If you lose one of your keys, you can take your other 2 keys and then create a brand new key that still works for the multisig.
So
And you
you don't have to have the output descriptor.
correct. Yep. Yep. It's only one XPub because it's only one signature. However, when you, yeah, and basically like the way it works is, I mean, I don't know, it gets pretty mathematical, but like if you think about a 2 of 3 signature scheme as being a line on a two-dimensional space, what you've got is you've got 3 points on that line, which are able to provide the signature, and then that line intersects with the y-axis, and that's kind of where the private key is. And basically, what happens is if you want to remove one of the keys and then introduce another key, 2 of the signers basically move down, and so they make a new line that still has the same y-intercept,
Huh.
but now the other key doesn't know where that new line is, so it's not able to sign anymore. And then you can create, a new key on that same line, and then likewise, you can actually introduce even more keys. You can change the threshold at will.
Oh, that's kind of nice. My brother
Isn't
was
that crazy?
actually
And you can do that offline, like off chain. You don't have
yeah.
to do anything on chain to do that.
So, for example, when I was talking to my brother last night about multi-sig, he was saying, "Hey, if I started off with a 2 of 3 now, and I wanted to go to 3 of 5 later, can I add that?" I go, "No, you have to create a new wallet." So, in with Frost, you could do that.
Yep.
Oh, that's pretty cool,
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
huh?
I mean, it's insane. It's multi-sig on steroids, really. Like honestly, it's yeah. If you look up. Do you ever watch the Stephen Livera
Yeah,
podcast?
yeah. Every now and then,
Yeah, so he had a really good episode on it. So if you look up Stephen
yeah.
Livera Frost, um, yeah, he had an episode with one of the developers. His name is oh, what is it? Nick Farrow. But yeah, super
Yeah, I'll have to
interesting.
check it out. I have heard about it. I just haven't looked at it yet. When's it going to be available, do you think?
Soon TM.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hopefully by the end of next year. Hopefully within the year 2024. But we'll see. And of course, once it gets released, will want to battle test it, and you won't want to ape in all your
Yeah.
life savings. But yeah, I'll definitely be messing around with it as soon as it's kind of released. And then, of course, it takes time for it to get integrated into,
All the
Sparrow,
wallets.
and
Yeah.
it's going to take time to get integrated into Cold Card, and whatever. So it's going to take time, but it's something to look forward to, and I think it's going to really kind of change the landscape for multisig, both for retail. I mean, it's really nice to be able to have these features just as a standard, pleb, but also for institutions. I mean, can you imagine, like, you've got institutions who have these multi-sig setups, and now they're able to, add and remove keys. Let's say one of the executives leaves the company, you can just revoke their key and then, add a new one. Or, it's like,
Yeah.
so these types of things are actually really, really important and useful for Bitcoin to be adopted as, as money for the world,
Yeah.
including for companies.
Who says
So,
BTC is ossifying?
bro, it's like, it's just like, yeah, there's so much coming, honestly, and people just don't even know. Um, cool. Okay. Well, I'm glad I got to just kind of chat about that a little bit. I've been thinking about it a lot. Um, but yeah, let's go. Drew, do you have any self custody questions or any comments?
Yeah, I had a question. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay. So I have like, I'm gonna get like a new Bitcoin wallet, hardware wallet for cold storage, and I was curious. Like, I have one already. Like, do you guys think it would be better? I mean, especially right now since there's like a lot of high fees and everything. I was wondering if there's any security risk. Do you think of having like, because one's a ledger and the other one I'm getting is like a Bitbox. So I'm just curious if you guys think it's better to just restore my wallet onto uh the new hardware wallet, or do you think I should just create a completely new wallet on there and then transfer all the Bitcoin there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So basically, um, yeah, the question is, how much do you trust Ledger? Right. That's ultimately what it comes down to. Or
Yeah,
you're going from Ledger to Bitbox. Is that what you said?
yeah.
Yep.
I guess I don't know. Like, would that compromise? I mean, I don't know honestly about the tech side of all that, but like, do you think that seed phrase is technically compromised if?
Well, no. I mean, technically, it's not compromised, right? If Ledger is a trustworthy company, and let's be honest, they've been around for a while. No one's been rugged by Ledger. They've been rugged by like Ledger's mistakes in terms of privacy, and like,
Yeah,
and they're doing some kind of weird things now with backdoors and stuff. But like, so the question is, when you set up that seed phrase initially with your Ledger device, do you trust that their closed source software set up that seed phrase in a way that is actually private? Um,
hmm,
and if you trust that, and a lot of people do, then you'll be fine recovering that seed phrase on your new device, and you won't have to go through the headache of paying a bunch of transaction fees to move over all your funds. And I mean, it is a pretty big process to do that, right? Now, on the other
yeah,
hand, if that makes you a little uneasy, right? If you're not going to be able to sleep at night because in the back of your mind you're wondering, maybe Ledger does have a copy of that seed phrase, or they made it in a way that maybe isn't as secure as some of these other devices, um, who are open source embedded, and people are 100% certain that they're doing the right thing when they're making your seed phrase. Then you want to make a new seed phrase, right? And you want to give yourself that, you know, that 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 ease of mind, so you can
yeah.
so you can sleep at
So I
night.
guess what if like I recover that seed phrase onto the new wallet, but then I add a passphrase to it.
Um, well, so if you do that, then you're going to get a brand new wallet, and so the seed phrase with a passphrase, it won't be able to spend from your original standalone seed phrase. It's two completely separate wallets. So if you did that, then you would still have to transfer the funds from the original seed phrase over to the seed phrase plus passphrase, right?
I guess my thing is also like I've also like had one of those I backed up my seed phrase on
And
some
yeah,
plates.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, oh man, now I have that one, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess this is part of the process, right? It's just kind of constantly iterating on top of your older setup and upgrading it, and that involves upgrading your backup as well, or redoing your backup rather. So
yeah.
yep, it's all part of the
So what would you
process.
do, honestly?
Uh, yeah, what I would do and what I have done, because I did use Ledger for a while, and when I got my new device, I got a cold card after having a Ledger. I did the new seed phrase. I rolled the dice and created a brand new seed phrase, and then I
Hmm.
transferred everything over. I was lucky in that I did that during the bear market when transaction fees were lower. I mean, now that they're so much
Yeah.
higher, I don't know what I would do, to be honest. I mean, I think it'd be a pretty painful, yeah, it'd be a painfully expensive thing to do to move everything over to a new wallet, especially if you have a lot of UTXOs, right? Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, you kind of have to weigh that. I mean, maybe what you could do is you could move over like the larger UTXOs now, like initially, and then kind of wait for transaction fees to come down to move over the smaller ones or consolidate the smaller ones. Um,
Hmm. Yeah.
yep. And then whenever you consolidate, just consolidate them directly into your new wallet, right?
Okay.
Um, does that make sense? Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've recently been like looking at UTXOs about like through Sparrow Wallet and all that stuff. So it's like consolidating the lower amount ones into one big one, so it's one
Yep.
transaction. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. You got it. Yep. Taking all your
Okay.
UTXOs, putting them as inputs, and then sending that back to yourself, as a single output, just to basically melt down those little chunks into a bigger one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Um,
I appreciate it.
yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, good luck. I think, and by the way, I mean, you know, we're all kind of freaking out about high transaction fees, and I know it's a little
Yeah.
scary when they explode like this, but I do think we'll get some, reprieve fairly soon, right? I don't think, people are going to be spamming Bitcoin with
Yeah.
the
True.
ERC20 tokens forever. So, I mean, and really what
Yeah.
this
Hopefully
is,
by the new year. Hopefully
yeah,
by
yeah.
the new year they'll be like a little bit lower.
Maybe,
So
yeah.
I can.
You might get a little dip in usage kind of around the holidays. That might be true.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah,
All
keep
right.
track of it. Watch mempool.space, and when it goes down, I think for me, like at this point, anything below 20 sat per VByte, I'm like, all right, that's nice and cheap. So that's when I
Yeah.
start
True.
cleaning up house. Yep.
All right. I will appreciate it.
Yep. No problem. Thanks for coming up. You can
Mhm.
stay up too if you got any other questions. Hey King, what's up?
Yo, Wicked, how's it going, man?
Going good?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. As far as I'm kind of doing the same thing. I wanted to I put a order down on the Q1 for cold card, and that shit is taking forever to ship out. So once that comes in, I'm gonna be moving my stuff over to that wallet because I have a different hardware wallet right now. But in terms of fees, man, like I'm not looking forward to having to transfer all that to a brand new seed phrase if these fees don't come down. So um, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just talking with MSC about this new Frost multisig, and then I'm thinking, it's like if I'm gonna eventually transfer my multisig setup over to a Frost multisig, and it's like that's like a whole nother, So yeah, this is part of the thing about Bitcoin is like it's constantly a moving target, because we're kind of so early. There's not really, I don't know, there's never really like a static way of keeping your Bitcoin, that's always, it's always something more private, better, more secure coming out. And so it's a constant balancing act between kind of being comfortable with what you have, and then knowing when to upgrade,
That Yeah, that's interesting you say that because I think just adjacently speaking, I had done you guys most people know about like the whole Start Nine stuff and the sovereign computing and stuff. Um, I had set up my own like Start Nine server with like a whole Raspberry Pi and all that stuff, and those guys are good. I mean they're great at their support and what they stand for and everything. Everything's working fine, and now I mean they basically said, hey, if you're running the Bitcoin stack, that Pi isn't good enough, right? So like a year ago, it was like 8 gig of RAM on that Pi, and I was like, good to go. Now it's like, yeah, you're probably gonna have to go beef up. So it goes with everything. I feel like, as you keep on going further, you're gonna have to, get better and better technology, and um, the best route is either something that you can kind of like make backwards compatible, and then uh, or you're gonna have to like go through the pain, or maybe luck out on like low fees or something like that.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And I guess it makes it even worse when you're a little uncertain about your current setup, right? I mean, it's one thing if you've got, like if you got a setup that you're happy with, you maybe you rolled your own dice, or you're pretty certain that the device you're using is legitimate, right? Like they're doing everything correctly, they're Bitcoin only, you generated your seed phrase and you're happy with it, like you're probably going to be all right, right? You can kind of wait it out. But yeah, I mean, now with like Ledger kind of fucking around,
Yeah.
and doing all that kind of stuff, I know there's a lot of people who had been using ledgers, and like I said, I was one of them. I bought a ton of ledgers for my friends and family back in the day, so I'm like trying to you know contact them and be like, hey, remember how got you all set up with that ledger? Well, maybe we got to upgrade you. And now it's just 10 times more painful because fees are way higher.
So speaking of fees, actually, I don't know if you know this. I've been trying to figure out or learn. I couldn't find a good resource for this, but like, how do they calculate how many sats per V-byte? Like, or not only just that, but what does that really mean, sats per V-byte? Do you have a good idea of that?
Yeah, so sats per vbyte, it's just the rate of fees that the user wants to spend. So it's a free market, and you're bidding a certain amount per virtual byte of information that your transaction takes up in the block. And you're saying, for every virtual byte in this transaction, I'm willing to pay 200 sats per vbyte, right? Vbyte stands for virtual byte. um, so you can think about your transaction like when you build a Bitcoin transaction, you're literally building a file, and the file has inputs and signatures and outputs and some other data in it. And then when you attach a fee rate to it, let's say 200 sats per vbyte, because that's kind of where we're at right now, you're multiplying 200 times the number of bytes in that file. And they say virtual bytes because there's a little bit of there's a little bit of difference between the different parts of the file, the way that you weight them. But that's kind of, I guess that's kind of secondary. The point is, like, you're literally paying for the space, the file space that you take up in the block, and then you multiply that by your fee rate. Does that
So,
make sense?
it, yeah, no, that makes sense. And so, is it accurate to conclude that if you have more UTXOs that are needed to provide the inputs for your transaction, your file size is going to be bigger, as
Yeah,
opposed to if it's, let's say, a single UTXO going one way, that's going to be a smaller file size.
exactly. Yep. And then that's the
Okay.
reason why, people are starting to figure out that they should be consolidating some of their, really smaller UTXOs, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and to be honest, like, I think, um, I mean, it's really good that people are starting to understand this and recognize this, but it's also kind of like you know, this is the point in time where you don't want to do it because fees are elevated. You want to do it during
You were
times.
beating the drum for a while, man. We gotta
Yeah,
give it
yeah.
to you.
I was trying to get people to, you know, to do it, and I know a lot of people did, so I'm happy that I at least influenced a few people. Um, but yeah, you really want to do this when fees go lower. So, you know, wait until the spike in fees kind of drops back down. Wait until the people who are using the network right now, you know, get bored and move on, and then you know, fees will likely swing back down, and you know, at least get below like 50 or 20 maybe even, and then make your move at that point, right? Use the network when fewer people are using it, and get your transactions pushed through at a cheaper fee rate. Try not to freak out when things spike. You know, it's not going to last forever. Go ahead, MSC.
Yeah. Speaking of fees, kind of a PSA and a question. So RBF, and maybe for those in the audience that maybe haven't heard that term, the request by fee. So a month ago, I was just playing around and I sent a multi-sig transaction. I actually just sent it to myself. It wasn't a real big amount using Blue Wallet. And turns out Blue Wallet multi-sig does not have RBF. So I sent this transaction and it didn't have RBF. Um, Other wallets like obviously Sparrow and Nunchuck, they do RBF across the board. But so that's one PSA. I think Blue Wallet multi-sig does have RBF. But that transaction set in the mempool for like 25 days. I knew I could do the CPFP thing, but I was just kind of curious to see how long it would stick in the mempool. And it sat there for 25 days. And it was like the fee that I did was like 21.9 sats per VByte. And right as I did it, like the fees were going through the roof. And so it sat there. So anyway, so on day 25, it purged and came back to my Blue Wallet, and it only did that after the purge rate was like up to like 40 sats per VByte or something like that. But it came back to my Blue Wallet. But when I looked at the same transaction on, I have it set up in Sparrow and Nunchuck, it nothing changed. It didn't come back, and it was like that for a day. And then like on day 26, it went back away. So like went back into the mempool, even on Blue Wallet. And it did that for a day. And then on day 27, everything purged and it all came back to me. And I was just curious if you'd ever heard of that
Yeah.
kind of activity.
Yep. Yeah. So this is actually a really interesting and important topic. So the topic of the mempool, right? The the shadowy mempool. So I mean, I think the important thing to understand about the mempool is that every Bitcoin node that's running has its own mempool. So it's not something that is necessarily identical or shared by every node, right? Every node kind of has its own rules that it follows, or its own, you know, its own amount of storage or memory that it allocates to the mempool. And so, let's say you're a node with just like the standard, I forget what it is, like 200 or 300 megabytes or something like that. What is it? It's 300 megabytes, I think, is the standard memory usage for a standard node. Whenever the mempool gets above that amount, you're going to start pruning or purging transactions that are lower in fee rates, right? But some nodes have their memory usage bumped way, way up, right? Some of them have, you know, multiple gigabytes of memory allocated towards their mempools, and so they never purge any transactions, right? So for example, mempool.space, you know, they've got, I'm sure they've got, you know, 16 gigabyte. I mean, I'm sure they have like an enormous amount of memory allocated towards their mempool, and they'll never purge anything. That's the reason why you can always see that transaction in mempool.space, even if it's been purged on your own node or on the node of the wallet that you're using. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah. When all this was going on, like day 25, 26, when I saw it purged on my Blue Wallet. I would even, on Blue Wallet, you can disconnect and reconnect, and it'll usually go to a different node. And no matter which node it went to, it would always show purged on Blue Wallet. But then, like on Sparrow, I have that connected to my own node, and it didn't show that it had been purged. And then again, like on day 26, it all went back into the mempool, even on Blue Wallet. And then day 27, everything got purged and went back to me. So it was just kind of strange how it worked like that. But yeah, if I will never send a transaction again unless I have RBF enabled, because that if that would have been a large amount, or if I would have been urgent,
Yeah,
that would
you
not
would
have
have
been
been
fun.
would have
Yeah,
been sweating. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, yeah, it is always kind of a little nerve wracking having larger amounts sitting in the mempool. But I mean, what is true is that it's not like that amount can ever get stolen. It's just that while it's sitting there, you can't spend it, I suppose.
Well, and then when you when I was Googling, how long can it be stuck in Mempool? It was kind of interesting because I would see some posts like on Reddit from 2013 or something, where a lot of folks would say, "Oh yeah, it'll clear in a couple of days," and then the most recent ones say, "Oh yeah, it'll usually clear within a couple of weeks." Mine took a month almost, but um,
Yeah, my longest is about, I think, 4 or 5 months. It was during the
oh
2020
really?
the late 2020 spike. I put in a transaction at 1 sat per VByte. I
Huh.
was sit, it was sitting there until basically the bull run was over.
Huh. So one more question. I think it was yesterday, Mr. Hoddle posted something about the fact that the fee estimators don't work very well or not very accurate, and therefore RBF and CPFP, you can't really use them anymore. And I replied, he never responded, but like, what does he mean by that? Because you would still want to have your transaction with RBF, but do you have any idea what he meant by that?
He's coming up now to answer you.
Oh, cool.
What's up, Mr. Huddle? We got some questions for you.
Wait, I have a question for you. The reason it took so long was because your wallet kept rebroadcasting. Was that what happened?
Yeah, this was back when I was using Ledger Live, so that's my assumption, is that it just kept rebroadcasting it.
Yeah, if it's going to keep rebroadcasting, then it's going to stay in the mempool forever, like, unless it stops rebroadcasting with a higher fee. Like, so just be aware of that,
Yeah,
people.
and I think when you're using some of these more uh, general pop wallets like Ledger Live or Trezor Suite or whatever, I think by default they just keep rebroadcasting it for you. I don't know if you can even turn that off, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah, I don't know either. What's up? What was the question for me?
Yeah, Mr. Hoddle, yesterday you posted something about how the fee estimators don't work very well, and therefore you can't really use RBF and CPFP anymore. What,
No, no,
what did you
no. The
mean by that?
opposite. The opposite. You have to use RBF or child pays prepare now. You
Okay,
need to use it
okay,
before you really
okay.
like. When there's no fee market, then really it doesn't matter. No one really cares about it because no one's using it because your transaction is going to get confirmed, within a few blocks. But now,
Okay.
when you have a fee market, you don't have a choice. Like, you need that RBF always. You always have to be looking at RBF for child pays prepare.
All right, that makes sense. I misread it then. That makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, what's
Yeah,
funny
see,
is what's hilarious is that a few months ago, or maybe like 6 months ago, there was a whole like uproar about making RBF default. Remember that? When everyone was like, "No, we don't need RBF. Like, it's gonna destroy merchants." But now, like, if you don't have RBF on and you send a transaction, and especially if your wallet keeps rebroadcasting that transaction, your stats in this type of environment are done. Like, they're just gonna sit in the mempool. You're not gonna get that confirmed.
So yeah, so two things. I don't know if you were in, but I sent one like a month ago, and it took 25 days to clear. But it turns out Blue Wallet multisig does not support RBF. Blue Wallet single sig does, but multisig does not.
I'm a noob when it comes to multisig, so I don't know if any wallet supports multisig with RBF.
Yeah, it
I'm
does.
not sure how that works. It does? Okay.
Nunchuck does, and Sparrow does, or two that I know of. But
Yeah, well, Blue Wallet's gonna have to fix that, especially now.
oh yeah, yeah, big time. Because that it was a small amount, and I was just playing around. But I would have been freaking out if it would have been urgent or larger amount.
Yeah. Okay. So just to kind of backtrack here a little bit, so that we can. I'm sure there's some in the audience who are like, "What the fuck are you guys talking about? RBF, child pays per parent, these things." So just to kind of explain what that is, these are ways in which you can bump up your fee if the fee that you paid originally, wasn't enough to get you confirmed in a block. So the idea here is like you broadcast your transaction and, maybe you lowball the fee a little bit and you think, oh, it'll get confirmed in a few blocks, maybe not the next one, but maybe in a few. And then all of a sudden fees spike and you're like, 20 blocks back in line and you're like, oh shit. So what you can do is you can use RBF, which stands for replaced by fee. Um, and basically, as long as you have other UTXOs in your wallet, right, that you're spending from, you can essentially use the value in those other UTXOs to bump up your fee. Is basically what it is. That's kind of like the TLDR of what RBF is. Child pays for parent is where you use the UTXOs in the receiving wallet to bump up the fee. So, let's say that you received some Bitcoin from somebody and they lowballed the fee and you want to bump up the fee. Then you use some of the UTXOs, some of your other UTXOs in your wallet that you're receiving it to, and you bump up the fee that way. So that's kind of the key difference between the two. But they both serve the same function of bumping up the fee whenever you kind of want to get confirmed faster. What's up, RK?
Hey, Wick, how's it going? Um, Really interesting what you just said. I want to ask you something about the difference. I was not aware of the exact difference between the two. So, are you saying that child pays for parent gives the control to the receiver to bump the transaction in case it's stuck?
That's my understanding. Yeah. And so, you know, for example, like let's say that you are consolidating all of your UTXOs into one big chunk. And so you've spent everything in your wallet and you sent it to, let's say you sent it to a new wallet, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that case, you won't be able to RBF because you don't have any UTXOs left over in that original wallet that you just consolidated everything from, right? But if you sent it to a new wallet and that new wallet already had some other UTXOs in it, you could use child pays for parent in order to bump it up if you wanted to bump up the fee for that, for that consolidation.
As far as I can remember, to be honest, I never was aware what the you know the interface that I'm using is choosing. Like I never saw that option to pick from, to be honest, not on Sparrow, not on
So
Blue
on,
Wallet, none of them. But as far as I remember, I have done child pays for parents in the past from the sending um, pub key, or from the sending private key.
was it when you sent it to yourself?
Yeah, it was myself.
Yeah.
So
So the receiver and the sender in that case is the same. So you were doing it from
so if
the
it was
receiver,
someone
which was
else,
yourself,
if
right?
so you're saying if it was someone else, I could not actually have done that.
What I'm saying is if you sent it to someone else, right?
Yes.
Then you would have to use RBF to bump up the fee. But if you're receiving it from someone else, then you have to use child pays for parent to bump up the fee.
Very interesting. I didn't know that. Okay.
But if you're sending it to yourself, you can use either. And I think Sparrow Wallet probably, I would assume that Sparrow Wallet chooses whichever is more efficient, and so maybe child pays for parents more efficient, but I'm not sure about that, to be honest.
Yeah, my understanding, the CPFP it's more expensive. You basically pay double because you
Okay,
pay, you
scratch
just,
that then.
because you're, at least that's what I've never done it, but what I've read is that you're doing two transactions, so you're paying double. And I have, I think I recall reading somewhere that with CPFP you can do it from sender or receiver, but I'm not 100% sure about that. I've never actually done it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe my understanding is a little shaky here. So, definitely do your own research. I've only ever experienced it a few times, and the times I've experienced it, that's kind of been I guess that's been my experience, but I don't know technically how it works, to be honest.
They have to make all of them by default on. Like, there shouldn't be any transaction without either of the two. Doesn't make any sense.
I think, well, yeah, especially with higher fees, I think people are starting to realize that. And this is kind of what I imagine, all the people who are saying to turn it on by default were were predicting would happen. And, now that it's happening, maybe
Yeah,
they'll,
and
take
like
it more seriously.
the only counter argument would be, yeah, but if the merchant wants to accept zero conf, that would be a problem. So, okay, but why are they accepting zero conf? Like, why? So just don't accept payments with zero conf.
Yeah. Yeah, for real. I mean, and especially now with, you know, I mean, I don't know if the mempool is ever going to clear again. I mean, I hope it does, and it might, right? I mean, I think when current participants get bored and stop using it to the degree that they are, miners chew through transactions very quickly, right? Like, if all of a sudden, the people who are sending a lot of transactions to Bitcoin kind of stop doing it, then the ones that are sitting there get eaten through very quickly. And you can kind of look at, like, if you look at the mempool chart, the one that shows like how many are sitting there, you see these periods where it looks like there's a lot of transactions sitting in there and it's getting really high, and then all of a sudden it just drops off a cliff. And that's because, out of nowhere, like the people who are using it just stop using it, right? And then you get kind of back to the steady kind of, I guess more standard adopter or adopted usage, and it's really not that much currently, right? You get these spikes of demand in block space, but there isn't really a steady, base demand of block space yet. I think there will be probably sometime next cycle and moving forward forever, and then at that point the mempool will never clear again. But I don't know if we're there quite yet. Maybe we are, but maybe we aren't. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, because of that, you definitely want to have RBF enabled, um, just in case you get stuck in the mempool and you're kind of stuck there forever, right? I mean, I think there's, again, like, if the mempool doesn't clear, there's going to be some 1 sat per vbyte transactions that are basically stuck there forever until your wallet software updates and stops rebroadcasting them. And so a lot of people are not even aware of kind of how to do that themselves. And so they're at the mercy of their wallet, like stopping rebroadcasting their transaction every 2 weeks or whatever it's set to.
Wouldn't you be able to just delete that? I didn't understand what you meant with the rebroadcast. I wasn't aware that the wallet actually. You mean like Sparrow does a rebroadcast every 2 minutes if something is stuck?
Your Well, your node, no, whatever node is attached to would do that. And I guess maybe I don't know if it's a node side or a wallet side. I would suppose it's a wallet side. But yeah, I believe my understanding is, there's basically some setting which rebroadcasts the transaction every certain amount of period, because it gets dropped off, I think, after 2 weeks. And so if it doesn't, if it doesn't get confirmed after 2 weeks, I believe it typically gets dropped. And so your wallet would rebroadcast it at that point. But again, this is another, I'll be honest, another part that I'm still a little shaky on in terms of my knowledge. It's definitely getting rebroadcasted though. Like I've heard that before.
Yeah, my own node always kicks off my own transactions after like a day already, and I can only find it on other nodes. Like it's so stingy with space. Yeah, because if you run your own node, I guess that's a different version than the public nodes. I wasn't aware of that. I got that when I had one mempool pending transaction for a day, and after a day it just disappeared from my wallet, and then I realized no, it's still there. It's just not on my node. So I connected the wallet to another node, and then it was back. So some nodes kick off transactions to save space and then take them back in once it's confirmed because
Yeah.
they have to, right?
Yeah.
But some
So
of them they just keep it.
that's the memory usage setting for your
Yeah,
mempool, right? And
exactly.
so by default, most nodes have 300 megabytes, and then you can bump that up if you've got, the 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 memory to do so, right? If you want to allocate more memory towards it, you can do that. And so a node like, the node that mempool.space is connected to, for example, probably has enough memory to that it will probably never purge anything, right? It's probably going to keep everything in there. Um, and that's the reason why, like, you can basically search for any transaction that you've broadcast in the past, even if your node had dropped it, it'll probably still be on mempool.space. But yeah, every mempool is different, right? I mean, every node is kind of keeping track of its own mempool, and there's nothing really ensuring that mempools are identical, right? There's no need in terms of consensus for mempools to be identical. So it's kind of this fuzzy space on each node where these transactions live.
Hey, Wicked, have you checked out the new goggles on Mempool Space? It's pretty cool.
Yeah, those that's fucking awesome. I had wanted to. I never like talked to any of the developers over there, but this is something that I thought would be really cool, and I had wanted them to do, and I'm glad that they did it, because it is awesome. You can like start to filter things and see like which ones belong to what type of transactions. You can even see like,
You can
yeah,
see all the crap that's out
well,
there.
you can see all the crap. You can see like how many are multisig. You can see how
Yeah.
many are RBF enabled. I mean, it's crazy.
So I could only see it on the yet to be mined blocks. I can't see the goggles on the already mined. Do
Yeah, I
you have,
think
is that coming up next? Do you know?
it should be. Yeah, I
Yeah.
would expect it is. Yeah, it would actually be really interesting if you could do the goggle, because you know how when you have a mined block, they give you the expected as well as the actual.
Yeah.
It'd be really interesting if you could do the goggles on both, and then
Yep.
see like if there was any specific types of transactions that were excluded on
Yeah.
purpose, right? Or
Yeah.
included that weren't expected.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
pretty cool stuff.
I'd imagine that's coming out. Yeah, I mean so again, we were talking about like how Bitcoin's, in terms of its protocol and its tools around it just keeps getting updated. And this is another example where it's like this isn't, a protocol level tool, but it is, a very useful tool in understanding the blockchain, right? And fees and everything. I mean, like how lucky are we that we're living in a time where not only are we early to Bitcoin, but we also now all of a sudden have all these like just kick-ass tools to use it. I mean, we're kind of living in the Renaissance right now, to be honest. Living through the Renaissance, I should say. Cool. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna run the space for another 4 minutes. If we've got 1 or 2 more questions, speak now, or hold your peace until tomorrow, because I think I'll run another one tomorrow. But but any final questions? Oh, you know what? I think I did get a question in the message. Let me just check that real quick. Yeah. Okay. 1 sec. Oh, Luigi. Yeah. Go ahead.
What's up, fellas? Good morning. Apologies if this was already answered. I don't know, 15, 20 minutes ago. I got caught up at work with something when you guys were talking about the multi-sig and the fees and all that. But file size wise, um, would a multi-sig file transaction cost more, per sat per V byte wise than say a single sig?
Yeah. So, yep, it would. A multi-sig is going to typically require more signatures, right? So every signature that you have to provide in order to spend your Bitcoin is more data. So if you've got a 2 of 3 multi-sig, you're going to need to provide 2 signatures, and that's going to, basically make your transactions larger, right? And then that is duplicative per input, right? Because you have to sign each input twice with a multi-sig with a 2 of 3. And then if you've got like a 3 of 5, then you have to sign it 3 times, right? So it's even larger. So yep, that's right.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Guess it's a bad time for me to be upgrading the multi-sig.
Yeah, well, and this is the other thing I was talking about earlier is like, so what we're talking about right here is legacy or script multisig, right? That's what it's called. That's the type of multisig that everyone uses right now and everyone talks about is script or legacy multisig. They're the same thing. But there's a new multisig coming out called Frost multisig, which is enabled by Taproot. So this is one of those really cool things that will be enabled by Taproot soon. And it's it was one of the selling points of Taproot, to be honest, but it's taken a long time to develop. But Frost multisig will only have 1 signature, even though you've got multiple keys. So it basically saves on space as well as makes your multisig more private. That should be coming out hopefully in a year or so. I don't know. I mean, we'll see. But yeah.
Yeah, I heard about that. It kind of fell off my radar. Might have to jump back in and do some research on it. But yeah, I know it's super early for this, but like I wonder if it's like easily migrated from like the legacy multi-sig to this new, you know what I mean? Like if there's a way that they could just kind of like seamlessly, users can seamlessly convert the, legacy multi-sig straight over to this new Frost standard. I mean, that would be fucking
They
awesome. But
Yeah, that's not possible because they would use different script types as well as different, math underneath that actually runs the whole thing. So if you got a legacy multisig set up right now and you want to upgrade, you'd have to transfer everything over. Same way of like, same way that you'd have to transfer, like if you have a legacy single sig and you want to upgrade to a SegWit single sig, you have to transfer everything over, right? There's no easy way to just convert the keys or something like that.
check. Thanks for the info. Also, I forget who was talking about it previously with the um, unable to do the RBF on Blue Wallet with multisig. Appreciate that info, man. That's good stuff because I had a issue with a transaction stuck in a mempool for like weeks as well, and I was using Moon Wallet, I'm switching gears here. Sorry, guys, but yeah, Moon Wallet didn't have. It's just a bare bones wallet. They don't have any RBF or anything. But I knew Blue Wallet did. But that's interesting that they don't have it for multisig.
Yeah, I even sent them an email asking when they're going to have it, and they didn't reply. And then I did the same with Nunchuck, and Hugo, the founder owner, he immediately responded back and said, yeah, they support it for both multisig and single sig. So I will now be using just Nunchuck because of that.
Yeah, Nunchuck is awesome.
It
I like
is.
Nunchuck a lot.
Blue Wallet is usually very responsive on Telegram, though. Try it there.
Okay.
They're very responsive there. I mean, I've never emailed any one of them, but on Telegram, you get usually a response within like a couple of hours.
Yeah, I'll try that.
I would actually want that as well. Like, I'll probably do it as well. So let's just push them.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thanks for coming up. Yeah, I think for the rest of this week, I'll try to run these morning, Q&A spaces and into the holidays, and then we'll see what happens next year. The new year is always pretty busy, but yeah, I love doing these spaces. I always appreciate you guys coming up and asking questions, helping me answer them, chatting. I always learn something new, so I appreciate it. And thanks for everyone in the audience for coming in and listening. All right. See you tomorrow.
Thanks.